friends. Welcome back to Tales of Praxis. Happy Wednesday evening to you. I'm Aaron Suduko, your host, the founder of WithTheTerribleFate.com, your online publication home for all of the most rigorous analytic articles studying the storytelling of video games. We're never the first to publish on a game, but we're always the one you'll spend the most time reading and thinking about. That's the goal in everything we do, whether that's written content, lectures, or indeed streaming adventures, such as the Tales of Praxis streaming series. If you're new to Tales of Praxis, it's a series that I've been running for With the Terrible Fate for the past half year or so, looking specifically at the wonderful series of JRPGs by Bandai Namco, the Tales games, endeavoring to venture through all of them, many of which I've played before, many of which I haven't, celebrating them through a combination of this wonderful live book club we have hanging out here on Twitch, some of my own private playthroughs, and plenty of companion written analytical pieces thinking about, ideally at the end of the day, all of these games in one way or another, and the storytelling language that this amazing series has put together in order to tell rich meditations on everything to do with the nature of one's place in the world, the content of one's actions, the shape of one's agency, making an impact not only on the continuing stories of the series itself, but also the storytelling of video games more broadly. We are rapidly working through the end of Tales of Berseria and thinking about what to play next. And I will tell you, if you were on the stream Monday, I betrayed you. And so I want to apologize for that on two fronts. First, I said that the new article I've been working on for the past 6 weeks or so, really more if you count the ideation process, would be out today. It's not, but it will be out either today or tomorrow. So this week is still a good promise. It's coming together well. And hopefully the extra time spent will be worthwhile to you. And I said we would be picking a new game to play after Tales of Berseria to be announced today. It's going to be a little longer because I was thinking about it and deliberating on it, but I have a plan. So I wanted to start out by announcing and apologizing for having betrayed you, but to say that in a bit of an excited tone as a bit of foreshadowing, because as you'll see once this article does come out, and like we've talked about a little bit on the stream previously, I think one of the things that is really cool about the storytelling language to which I was just referring is the various kinds of meaning it assigns to the idea of betrayal as an act that is not just a violation of someone or a violation of a community, but in fact, something that can actually be productive for learning about yourself and your relationships in a way that actually ultimately empowers the characters. And you'll see that's a big centerpiece in the study itself. So I'm not going to say this was planned as a deliberate way to get excited about the study, Aaron finding a way to betray you all, but it's JRPGs, right? So they're all about life, and life imitates art, imitates life. So it all works out. Pottery, I would be stoked if it cracked the top 10 anime betrayals. I'm going to put Aaron in the top 50, but I have my little steady repeat at my side, and she always looks a little betrayed by me. So honestly, I'm used to it. It's old hat for me, especially when I'm writing about repeat in the context of an article that also focuses on betrayal, in some cases side by side with repeat. So especially for you Tales of Vesperia head, you have plenty to look forward to, and I have plenty to look forward to in talking about it with you. So that's one. That's on the article. I spent since the last stream, just locked away in the editing lab. And the readings of the games, if I do say so myself, are looking quite nice. It's funny, I think I talked about this back when I published my book on Xenoblade Chronicles 3. When one does a close reading of a video game story, at least in the way in which we approach it on With the Terrible Fate, oftentimes one has to do a lot of work of reading and situating all of the evidence and content that one wants to look at in the game before finally arriving at some of the points that one wanted to make the whole time. And so it's just now at the end where when I say there's just a little bit left to do, it's truly probably only 1,000 to 1,500 words more, I would bet. But it's really all focused on some of the metafictional, player-focused consequences of the way in which these games tell their stories, which I think are some of the coolest parts. So the hope is, it's funny the way analysis works. If you do the analysis up front right, I would put it to you, oftentimes the consequences fall right out of it so that it becomes a foregone conclusion what it was that you wanted to say all along. And then it can be an easy and fun process both to write it and to read it at the end and to have a lot to talk about afterwards. So it's going to be fun. We'll have a lot to dig into this coming week on the stream, and I'm excited to do that with you all. That's that on the article. Hopefully we'll have stuff to discuss starting Friday on the stream. As pertains to what it is that we will be playing next, it's so funny how these things go, because if you had asked me even 30 minutes before the stream, I'm not going to tell you what my decision was going to be, but those who have been watching the stream can probably draw a good inference about it. But I was pretty set on it. And then the more I was getting ready to actually plan and talk about it and forecast what it was going to look like, the more I found myself thinking, well, like I've talked about on the stream before, there are really two kind of different paths that we can take in terms of sorts of Tales game that we can look at next together on the stream. And so rather than being dictatorial and deciding which path that was going to be, I figured I would just take advantage of the polling that we'd already been doing and do a little bit of a runoff. So I'm going to share a runoff poll now. I'll share it on Friday too. And hopefully, depending on who comes through, who hangs out, we'll get hopefully a bit more decisive data in order to be ready to make a plan this coming Monday. Because looking at what we have left in Tales of Berseria, we're definitely coming up on the end, but I would bet we can squeak through this week with plenty of content in it left, at least. We still have a whole EX dungeon that we haven't touched, and I've never touched before, so I don't even know how long that's going to take us. So we can have time to think about not the whole universe of other Tales games we haven't streamed and thought about yet, but instead just two options. So I'm going to put the poll here, and as people are inclined to check that out, I'm also going to just show and talk a little bit to the various options, although I imagine if you're here watching the stream, you probably know as much or more about them than I do. But I decided to narrow it down to these two. So we have, unsurprisingly, Tales of the Abyss, and we also have, if Aaron can flip the box correctly, Tales of Graces. So these are two great games. They're games we've talked about before quite a bit. They're both games which I've played before, but Tales of the Abyss is one which I played a couple months ago for Tales of Praxis on my own. I didn't stream it, and I wrote about it. I published a reading on how to read and think about the storytelling and act of playing Tales of the Abyss through the lens of Jewish mysticism and Kabbalah, which is a really interesting and textually grounded lens in terms of what the game wants you to read into it. We've talked about it on the stream before as one that, at least right now, I think it's safe to say is my favorite. And so, yeah, I'll be shocked, Pottery. I speaking of top 10 anime betrayals, if you actually surprised me, that would count in my top 3 anime betrayals. But I have a feeling it's no surprise. For those who are perhaps more of an open question mark than Pottery, so Tales of the Abyss, in terms of the storytelling, the reason that I'm picking these two is because while there are a million connections intertextually that we can draw between the various Tales games, like I've talked about before on the stream, the last 4, the only 4 really that we've streamed so far, have been 2 pairs of pretty tight duologies in terms of Tales of Symphonia being followed up just a year or perhaps 18 months after the events of its story with Tales of Symphonia, Dawn of the New World, which takes place in the same narrative continuity. And then we went from Tales of Vesperia to Tales of Berseria, a prequel and origin story for the worlds that was presented to us in Zestiria. Tales of the Abyss and Tales of Graces, on the other hand, are very much more so standalone works, which I think will be very fun. And as I said, there are a million connections we can draw between them and really have already drawn in large part to the other Tales games, but it's not as if they branch off of one particular game or into a sequel after that or something like that. So I think just for the texture of the series, it occurs to me that it'll be fun to do one that's a bit more self-contained. I know, Pottery has ideas which have already been pretty vocally put forward on the stream about the extent to which Tales of the Abyss could be read as a duology, and I won't belabor it for fear of influencing the poll. But Potter, you know that I'm very interested to think through that with you in whatever form that might take. So that's and that's, you open a can of worms with any of these Tales games with any Tales fan. That's one of the things that I've said before that I love so much about this series of games and doing this kind of reading of them is that it's sufficiently popular yet also sufficiently niche that I find when you find someone who really loves these games, chances are good they'll have encyclopedic knowledge and they'll have a million views about how to read the various games in conversation with one another, rank them relative to one another, everything in between, which we've done plenty of on the stream. We'll do plenty more yet before our time is through. So as not to belabor the point, but to give people a sense of the various options, Tales of the Abyss, very self-contained, a spiritual journey. My own argument for it is I think the entire act of playing the game can be seen as a meditative act in a pretty specific and cool way. So just as you might have the spiritual practice of doing something like personal meditation or going to church or going on a nature hike or any way in which one communes with one's spirit and one's relationship with the world and the cosmos in a broader way, I want to argue and put to you that Tales of the Abyss, on its own textual terms, does something really similar to the player just by virtue of playing it. And that as much as any of the character work and the many other things to recommend it, is one of the key reasons, especially after studying it, that I really love. But especially given that I already played it for Tales of Praxis and have published on it, I think if we were to go to Tales of the Abyss next, it would be the kind of thing that would be a very pendulous swing to more of the beginning of the Tales series. Remember, Tales of Berseria, which we're just wrapping up, was a 2016 game. This was 2005, so it'd be going back into the past, almost 2 decades earlier than now, if you can believe it, to look at something which would be a playthrough that I would design to be accessible and meaningful for people who had never played the game, but also something that would be an opportunity to kind of dialogue in a bit of a more didactic and structured way with some of the work that I've already done, as opposed to working through and thinking about things more organically and naturally on the stream without kind of background theory guiding our way through it. So that's one. Tales of Graces, as I've talked about before, it's another one that I've played before, so it wouldn't be brand new for me. I still, to be totally honest with everyone, have a little bit of trepidation about playing all the way through a full-length Tales game that I've never played before for the first time on stream, which isn't to say that it wouldn't be a lot of fun, and it isn't to say that it's not going to happen before Tales of Praxis is all said and done, because we all know there are good examples of that which we could pick. But in terms of what we do next, and given the time of the year, I think it would be nice to stick to one that is at least vaguely familiar to me. And Tales of Graces is a good representative of that, because I think if I had to put a year to it, I probably played it in maybe 2015, maybe 2016. So a while ago, and especially given that I played Tales of Berseria later, and I was already struggling to remember some of the plot beats, I think a lot of this would be stuff that I would be kind of re-experiencing for the first time, even though it was my second playthrough. But it's one that, at least in my memory, strikes some very different and interesting notes than some of the other games that we've played for Tales of Praxis so far. It's a little bit more recent than Tales of the Abyss. I don't remember the year that F was released, and Pottery, you probably know. But I think Tales of Graces, the original, was 2010, so about 5 years after Tales of the Abyss. And it's a story, without giving too much away, that, well, the tagline on the back, right, says, bonds of friendship are eternal. It's very much a story about kind of wrestling with the meaning of childhood friendships as one grows into adulthood. And especially as I've gotten older and thought about that and the way it plays with kind of wrestling with the way in which relationships develop over time. I think that's something that gave it a really human and intimate impact to me, especially in the broader universe of JRPGs, which oftentimes veer so toward the metaphysical and cosmic rather than the intimate and personal. Back when I played it the first time, I've said before, trying to make sense of its themes was a big part of why I wrote the study that I did on Xenoblade Chronicles 2 back in the day. So it would similarly be self-contained, a lot of fun. I don't think I ever played its fourth act back in the day, so there would be some new content on the back end, new to me, that is. But yeah, 2010, 2011, there we go. So close enough. It's a good marker for it, and thank you, Pottery. But yeah, so it would be similar in that sense to Tales of the Abyss, different in the sense that I haven't been back to it in quite a while. I don't really have a lot of settled narrative views or frameworks for interpretation for it. So it would be similar to the kind of working out of themes and building the airplane as we're taking off and getting into the air that we've had a lot of fun with the playthroughs thus far, but with a game that is situated in a little bit of a different context in the overall series than what we've gotten in the previous playthroughs. So those are your two choices now. Hopefully having two rather than the embarrassment of riches of the entire series besides what we've streamed will help to build a little bit more of a consensus. If not, that's okay. Aaron can still make an executive decision. And to emphasize what I've emphasized before, it's going to be a hell of a lot of fun either way, and we have plenty of more tales and plenty of more adventures to go on together before all said and done on that series. So that's what I've got. I will spam the runoff poll a few more times during the stream, and we'll go back to it on Friday as well, and I'll let people know when push comes to shove and we're ready to make a decision on that. So that's two. And without dwelling on it too much, number three, before we go back to the Tales of Berseria postgame, has to be because I'm running a stream looking at the Tales series, and we got a new trailer today for Beyond the Dawn. I'm legally, contractually obligated to talk about it. Obviously not, but it feels like that a little bit. No, if you're as excited and as passionate about Tales as we are here with The Terrible Fate and on the Tales of Praxis stream, and you haven't seen the new trailer for Beyond the Dawn, go check it out. It's a nice little window into the quest system of the game and a little bit of a teaser into what some of the content of the quests will be. I think it's really nice because, as we already talked about when the first trailer came out, it looks like, unsurprisingly, there's going to be a lot of focus on the party wrestling with what it means to pass the things that they've learned onto the next generation, between Law wrestling with the legacy of his dad and what that means to him, and Shion thinking about kids who are sort of similarly isolated and struggling with the sort of issues that she dealt with the presence of her thorns in her life before she was freed of her thorns, things like that. But then also, what really got me kind of unexpectedly excited was the idea of growth in characters in the party in sort of surprising but logical directions. So for instance, without really spoilers for the game too much, Dohalim, one of the party members, right, he's really interested in the arts, and the way that we see that in the original game is through basically two very different pillars of aesthetic engagement. One is a very solitary act of artistic expression, which Dohalim expresses through poetry, which he just writes and shares with people kind of on a whim at various points in the game. And then the other is sort of a kind of archaeological tourism, one might call it, where he's really interested in collecting artifacts that tie back to ancient Danan civilization from across all of the different realms as you're traveling across Dana. And the thing that I didn't expect to be this tickled by in the trailer, which is actually, I think, pretty cool when you stop to think about it, is it looks like from what they're showing, there's going to be this whole perhaps mechanic similar to something like what fishing was for Kisara, but pottery crafting for Dohalim, where he has this really interesting line in the trailer where he basically says, I didn't write it down to quote it, but he says something to the effect of, pottery is really cool because you can mix together all of these different types of clay from the various realms of Dana, which were previously walled off from one another. And the cool texture and artistry of each individual pot is actually a blend from all of those different realms. So of course, very nice for thinking about the harmonization of the world, but also cool growth for Dohalim, someone who's gone from thinking about artifacts as individual representations of what was to a kind of activity that can be used to breathe new life and new unity into places which were previously separated from one another. So people will probably know from my talking and groaning about fishing in previous streams that I oftentimes have a hard time getting into those sorts of mini-game oriented questing mechanics for characters. But I think as I've been reflecting on Tales of Arise since I replayed that, I think they did a really cool job with making those systems meaningful to the characters, even with things like fishing for Kisara. And Pottery seems like it could be a really cool, similar achievement for Doe. So excited to see where that goes. And I can't believe it's only a month away. When I do make a plan for what it is we're going to stream next, I'm going to look ahead and try to put together, so we can all be on the same page about it, a schedule, not just for the typical streams, but also for layering in the DLC stream, because I'm really excited about it. I'd love to be able to play through and think about it with you all as it's fresh and as it's come out. So I'll try to forecast the schedule for that, so we can all be looking forward to that, in addition to whatever we choose between Graces and Tales of the Abyss. So it's always an embarrassment of riches, isn't it? I know, Pottery, and it's so cool because I never get this giddy from trailers, because I typically don't even watch trailers, but looking at them exploring the world and reflecting on it and seeing old and new characters, old and new vistas, it really does look like, unsurprisingly, they came back to it because they wanted to say something thoughtfully and express that not just with the story, but also with the world. So I won't be surprised if venturing around the world and just taking the time to take in the sights, I'll have a lot of moments of being excited about what's familiar, but also what's changed and what's evolved, which I'm sure is part of what it is that they're trying to say, which will be very cool. Yeah, I know. I'm cautiously hopeful. I'm not going to overcommit, but I'm cautiously hopeful to get that thing out I was talking about with reference to Ratatosk and Dawn of the New World before this, because I do think it'll be useful for jumping into Beyond the Dawn, but we'll see. It'll be a fun point of reference either way. I'm glad that Dawn of the New World, of all the Tales games we could have gotten into in the stream so far, was one of them that we have as collective shared background going into this DLC, because I can't imagine it not being pertinent as a point of reference and comparison and contrast with Beyond the Dawn. So there you go. I know. Try not to break all of Dohalim's precious pots, Pottery. Oh man, we couldn't have planned that any better if we tried. Maybe, I'm telling you, I think there's a Bamco Confederate who's at least dipping in and out of the stream, which is just enough for me to selfishly take credit for all the good things they do and nothing that is blameworthy. I jest, but Bamco, you know we have so much love for you and so much love for the series, so can't wait to see this next entry that you have cooking. All right, but we can't get too excited about what's next before working through what we have left in Tales of Berseria. Of course, we have the EX dungeon. Of course, we have that fight, which we embarrassingly fell short on with the now incredibly overpowered Jude and Milla. But I also remembered, because it had slipped my mind with that fight looming, that we had this amazing teaser from the Norman aptly named hero on Norman Island, that if we go to Logren, I think, we have the opportunity to actually learn more about the history of Artorias and the Exorcists and Melchior. So I think we got to start out with that, build out the lore of the world a little more, and then we can work on clean up outward from there. Hugs, right back at you. Good to see you, my friend. Yeah, we're doing great. Lots of great things on the horizon. We've had plenty of time to vamp and think about what's next at the start of this stream. Just going to catch up on messages and then we'll dive in. Pottery, are you thinking about any particular party members when you say that? Like, are you thinking in reference to Arise or just more broadly? Yeah, I'm trying to think of examples. I'll tell you, like, honestly, when I talk about staying away from trailers, that's one of the reasons that I do it, because I feel like there are certain ways, at least for me, to distance myself from a lot of how these stories are represented in the broader popular culture before one gets the chance to sit down and play them, that sometimes help me with at least some of those things feeling a little more organic. And sometimes it doesn't always feel organic. Sometimes I also feel like the game wants you to anticipate that, and that's okay. But certainly I get your feeling where if it seems like it wants to be a twist and then it's not, that can be disappointing and a little frustrating. Yeah, it might be interesting at some point. And honestly, I think this could be something we could think about in the next playthrough, whether it's Tales of the Abyss or Tales of Graces that we decide on. There would be good opportunities to consider this. Just the nature of twists in the Tales series and what it is that they try to represent and how it is that they want us to take it. Because the more I sit and play these games, especially for a second time in my older gaming years, the more I don't know if this is a cynical take or just me being too much of a literary analyst take, or if there's more to it than that. But I feel like sometimes with twists, it's not always about surprising the player as such. It has more to do with what you were saying, and I get how sometimes this cannot be a very satisfying answer, but the idea of representing like the shape of the character's arc and what it is that they contribute to the party, so that even if it's very clearly foregrounded, like you said, even in the case of the introductory movies, that they're going to be a key member of the story and the party, it's more about what it takes for them to join and what happens after they join. I know we haven't streamed this yet, but picking on your favorite game, I mean, the more time I've spent with thinking about this game, Raven is just a really cool example of this for me. Not in terms of joining the party, but in terms of the twist, in terms of how he interacts with the party, and everything that happens in the second act. I mean, it's evident and part of the structure of the story. Like, no one trusts him from the get-go, right? But I would argue, and I do argue, and you'll see me argue, that a large part of the journey that the party needs to take in order to arrive at their capacity to determine themselves and determine the future of the world in a kind of libertarian way is, wrestling with the meaning of what Raven contributes to the party and the challenge that he presents to them, and how he helps to call them back from that. Yeah, I also find myself wondering about dynamics like that, like the one you mentioned with Flynn Pottery, because, I mean, this is one of the things that I was thinking about when I played the Symphonia remaster, and if and when we do Abyss, I'm sure this experience will also come up quite a bit. I find myself wondering how much of that change in dynamics that we're talking about is a result of a shift in the storytelling language of these games versus how much is it just us getting older and experiencing more of these stories and having a more advanced literacy in terms of being able to read them and knowing what to expect. Because I truly don't know. I guess if I had to give an intuition, my guess is a lot of it comes from becoming better situated in the language of the games and playing a lot of them and having a sense of where it is that they're going to go. I do often feel, by the way, and I think Arise is actually a pretty good example of this in some places, that later games in a series will oftentimes be aware of the expectations that experienced and literate players have and will play with those. Sometimes in ways you like, sometimes in ways you don't. So I don't think it always has to become stale, but I do certainly think it's a different experience when you're going in fresh, especially in your younger days, versus when you're going in with a lot of Tales games under your belt. Yeah, and to be clear, I think the multivariability is part of what, for me at least, makes it cool and interesting and hard to pin down. Like, so much of the nature of these stories is in their multivariability, and so for me at least, it's only fitting that in the mere act of engaging with them, we similarly have to wrestle with a number of potentially conflicting and chaotically interactive variables that are hard to isolate or adjudicate. We have a whole bunch of Malakim here. Oh, well, there goes a lot of what what Grail has said about Fire Malakim throughout the game, because here we have a freed Fire Malik who is not Laphicet and also not Ceres and not Lila. So I guess there are, technically speaking, more of them in the world. They just certainly do seem to be less frequent than those of the other elements. Yeah, so the Malakim extending their domains to help the Empyreans find equilibrium. That sounds a little bit like the motive and basis for the individual Lords of the Land, which we obviously see come to fruition in Zisteria. Oh, that's okay. You're good. No, I was just wrapping up the thought. I was, I don't know when you dipped, but I was basically just saying I think it's cool in a storytelling form that is so intrinsically multivariate in terms of the stories and the character dynamics that it's similarly reflected in the multivariable nature of the player's engagement with it. Especially if you have the benefit of going back to these at different times in your life with different contexts behind you. That's a cool idea in this sort of cosmological game that also reinvigorates the mantra from Dawn of the New World. Speaking of Dawn of the New World, that courage is the magic that turns dreams into reality, that the Empyreans themselves, who are sort of the previous foundations of the world, went to sleep with the dream of coexistence between humans and Malakim. I think there are some like mystic traditions where like there are analyses of reality according to which reality itself is a dream or some sort of otherwise like altered conscious state of the gods or spirits that undergird it. So it'd be interesting to see how much we could play with the idea of like reality being based in those sorts of dreams of the Empyreans, and then how it changes or is irrevocably altered, as we've seen when they're woken up. Oh, that's interesting, Pottery. So what do you mean in terms of the added gameplay weight and how that influences your predispositions toward the characters? Tell me more about that. Yeah, I forgot to fix my lighting with my blinds, and I can see it's fucking up my webcam a little bit. I'm gonna fix that real quick. It was cloudy and rainy moments ago, so I found myself hoping, because I know my dog likes to look out that window, oh, I won't have to fix the blinds, but whether you do or don't like the weather in Colorado, just wait a minute and it'll change, which I should have known. Hi, Spa Queen. Welcome to the stream. Welcome to Tales of Praxis. Pleasure to have you.
Hey, I've got a question. Were you one of the Norman who traveled with Artorias?
Why, sure! Are you a relative of his or something?
Tell me, what happened here?
No can do! That ain't something I can just go blabbing about!
I'm a follower of Melchior's, who in turn stood behind Claudin. Please, we'd like to know.
Well then, this place is where Claudin died. It all happened more than 10 years ago. Claudin had taken an oath never to kill, but he broke it to save the life of Artorias, his most beloved disciple.
Another death on his hands.
Nah, Artorias didn't do nothing wrong. There was no other way Claudin could have saved the boy. Besides, Claudin had nearly stretched that oath to its limits. Claudin believed in the purity of Artorias' spirit. He entrusted his hopes and the very future of the world to his disciple. Sad thing is, Artorias just kept blaming and blaming himself for the death of his master.
That sounds like him.
So he tried to do everything he could to live up to Claudin's ideals, with no one else to help. He traveled the world teaching folks about Malachine and them dreadful demons, and how important it is to have a pure heart. But people had lived in peace so long, they didn't care for his stories. And in the end, the four Empyreans drifted into slumber. Once again, Artorias felt he had nobody to blame but himself. So what did he do? He started talking about how if we stuck with him, he'd turn us into demons. So he journeyed to the east, all by his lonesome.
He went east.
Say, how is Artorias
Which is
doing
when he
these
found a
days?
ball.
What's he been up to?
Thanks for sharing your story. I know it must not be the easiest thing to talk about.
Midgand has become a dangerous place. You should go back to Norman Island before you turn into a demon.
So, our young head exorcist, racked with despair and helplessness, gave everything up and headed to the east. So then, to Eastgand, I guess?
Maybe to
That would be the logical conclusion.
Why don't we stop in a ball? I feel like we're being called there.
Yeah, I feel it too.
I know we spent more time than I expected to talking about this last time, but it is amazing how many pretty robust series of conversations it's so easy to miss in Berseria if one doesn't take the time to just unwind these little side points. More so than in Zestiria, I feel. I don't feel as though we did a rush job of wrapping up the post-game there, but it felt like there were fewer long threads of unraveling of world history in the way that we're getting here. That's interesting, though, and something that would, if we were to play Abyss right after this, certainly one piece of connective tissue, speaking of intertextual subject matter that will rear its head no matter what order you play games in, thinking about different perspectives on the nature of killing and life and death, right? Because we hear that idea that Claudin was able to persist for, I think they said 300 years last time, because he took an oath not to kill. And then, of course, all the pathos and meaning of breaking that oath and effectively sacrificing his own life and his principle in order to save his disciple, which clearly did wonders for Artorias. But I find myself then also looking back to Tales of Vesperia, because remember, a big part of Soray's ethos as well was that he didn't want to kill, but he had a very different approach to it, you know, where it wasn't some kind of metaphysical oath from which he drew a special kind of strength. It was more just something he believed in, and importantly, something that for him was more of an offshoot of his philosophy that people ought to be able to pursue and abide by their dreams and the things that they believe in, just because that's intrinsically important, which was also part of why I see it more as a like a consistent enactment of his praxis rather than sophistry or mental gymnastics for him to have Rose in his party as like the blade of the shepherd and someone who can kill, whereas Sorey doesn't. And it's still something where we can read the party as overall consistent in their approach to the world. So thinking about what makes the difference between what we're unwinding in the history of Claudin and his party and how they thought about death and killing and the meaning of life versus Shepherd Sorey's party ages and ages later gives us an interesting sense of the overall tapestry of the world and the evolution of different principles, I think. Interesting too, because it's so much more of a side story, this idea of Claudin and Artorias and everything they went through, than the idea of Mythos and Martel and Kratos and Ewan as one gets it in Tales of Symphonia. But as we're getting further into this, very similar ideas, right? Of a world where the history is a little murky, but the more you uncover it, the more you uncover that so much of the way things are now came out of sort of a similar JRPG party journey that happened in the past, which we only get glimpses into, as opposed to the incredibly granular adventure that we get through our own party at this era in the world.
Once I saw this place, it all started to make sense. Artorias must have lived a happy and peaceful life here.
A full cutscene. Amazing.
Who, me? I'm a Norman who traveled the continent.
A scored
Artorias
cutscene.
Years ago. He's been on my mind quite a lot lately. So I followed a rumor that led me here.
That Princessia. Were you the one who put it out?
Nope, wasn't me. It was already here when I arrived. Do you know the deeper symbolic meaning behind the Princessia flower?
It can mean an irreplaceable treasure, or that you wish them well for years to come.
Then the one who planted it was... Yep, that's right. The person lying in this grave saved the life of a certain someone who had been worn down and broken by his mission. Thank you. The poor fellow. He was always so serious. So deadly, deadly serious. And he was practically always being strangled by his own conscience. So much so that he deluded himself into believing he needed to erase the emotions of the human race he so dearly loved. Please, if I may, somehow, some way, set the poor guy free.
Oh, I intend to. But my version of setting him free might be a bit different from yours.
Well, I'm still counting on you, Lord of Calamity.
I think I understand Artorias' past now.
Yeah. No matter who you are or how far up the chain you climb, life never entirely goes your way.
You said it. As much as he claims to be a man of reason, he still managed to give in to sentiment enough to plant flowers here.
Not only can he not protect the ones he loves, he can't even permit himself to be free.
Indeed. But I think that's human nature, too. I suppose. But I'd also say he has an inner strength like no one else. He lost his master and his wife, and yet he overcame those failures to rise again as the shepherd.
I get that. But it doesn't absolve his crimes. I have to settle the score with him.
Yeah. I'll be with you until the very end, Velvet. Are you sure that's really something you want to say in front of your sister's gravesite?
All the more reason she should hear this.
It's really cool, too, with all of the character development that we've seen in Magilu, to hear the lines and the interactions she has with characters like Velvet, like the one she just had, in a different light. Like earlier in the game, when you don't know better, I think it's very easy to hear those lines like, "Oh, you sure that's something you want to say in front of your sister's grave?" Like Magilu is almost needling Velvet, or giving the party a hard time, or just being a kind of trickster or troublemaker. But knowing everything we know now about her role as a maven, the progenitor of this storyteller or guide role for the universe that we also see borne out in Tales of Vesperia, and the way in which she really supports their ethos contra Melchior's. I think the way I hear a line like what she just said to Velvet now is much more in the spirit of almost like helping Velvet to refine her own convictions, like making her fully aware of the context in which she's uttering those words, not to like get Velvet to retract it or make her feel bad, but almost to further steel the fires of Velvet's passion and help her to access even more conviction about it. Which is, I suppose, in terms of the trope of the trickster and what it is the trickster is ultimately trying to achieve, still a very trickster thing, but more in a skillful means way than in just trying to create chaos way.
Take a look at this.
Great. Let's do this one run, get it started.
Man, and another Tales game, and I can't imagine that this happens in Tales of Berseria, because I feel like I would have read about it online as I was looking into the post game. That's the kind of scene and side quest where I would almost hope and expect that taking the time to discover it and stumble upon it would actually change the content of the ending. Like perhaps Velvet would have a longer or different conversation with Artorias. I'm almost thinking about, this is not a JRPG example. I guess depending on how you define JRPG, maybe it's a JRPG example, but I'm thinking a little bit about the way that Dark Souls 2 used its expansion, Scholar of the First Sin, where if you go around and learn about the history of all these other kings and their fallen kingdoms and the nature of the sovereign in this fallen world, then you get a whole other ending that adds like radically different context and an interpretive lens to the story. That kind of side quest that we just got with Artorias' past strikes me as really similar to that in tone. Though, of course, I'm sure what could in large part come to the same thing would be if we took the time now to go and fight Artorias again. I'm sure even with the content of the scene being the same in terms of what we were getting audio-visually, we would certainly hear and engage with it differently, which is fantastic. One thing that's really sad, too, which they didn't quite say, but which I can't help but think about as I'm now contemplating Artorias a little bit more. Where should we go? Let's go to... Actually, okay, let's go to Zexen, because I want to see, now that we've opened up Norman Island, if that's going to help us find that lost Cats, who was, I think, gating the Dark Turtles fight. And then we can go to Killeros after that if we still can't find it. What was I saying? Yeah, so one thing that really comes out to me that's really just so sad and poignant, I think, about Artorias in that is, I mean, it really puts explanation and weight behind why it is that he's so broken when he stumbles upon a ball and Celica finds him. All of those flashbacks that we saw in the Earth Pulse, which, again, remember, it was a Nominat who was showing Velvet those flashbacks in order to give her despair. So I think that's really interesting and important to keep in mind in terms of the fact that there's a clear narrative explanation of why we would not be given that further background context when we were getting those little snippets in the Earth Pulse. Because it wasn't about relating to Artorias, it was about cultivating despair and hate in Velvet as the aspects of malevolence that a Nominat wanted to absorb. But so now we understand that a lot better, of course. And I think the other thing that comes through, which is just so sad, is the idea that, he was saved because his master, Claudin, broke this prohibition, this oath that he had taken not to kill. And so you can see... And it's almost interesting to me that they don't say it, because I wonder if part of the point is that they can't bring themselves to utter it or think about it. But you can see the gears turning in Artorias' head, where if his wife died and he had lost his unborn child and he was so broken, you could almost see him thinking like, well, if Claudin was able to save me by breaking this prohibition and distorting his own nature, maybe I can do the same thing in order to redeem the souls of those people whom I lost. And maybe that was part of what made it possible for him to give in to Melchior and go down this otherwise just insane and kind of unbelievable and otherwise unsympathetic path of trying to revive Innominat and suppress the emotions of everyone, not just out of a kind of inability to engage with his own pain, like we thought about back during that final confrontation with Artorias, but also out of a kind of sad misinterpretation or attempt to learn a lesson from the kindness that his own master showed him. Which is really, really sad. Oh, we have more conversations up by Innominat in the Outer Garden. I think those are with the party members as opposed to the Lost Cats. I was trying to... Oh, okay, so we can see the upper levels. No, it looks like there's still no exclamation point for the cats. Maybe it's just that we still need to open one more chest? Oh, well, but we can knock off those conversations while we're here at least, and then we can head to Killer House. That might open more stuff up as well.
We can do this! I still need a lot of...
Well, so the last time we were here, we got that special conversation with Eisen and no one else. I wonder if it was just by virtue of doing their side quest and we had only done Eisen last time, because it's amazing that now we have that opportunity with everybody else. I love it, though. Let's do it.
If you want to run, now's the time.
Are you kidding? I've never felt so alive!
You know, when we first met, I never would have expected you to stick around this long.
Nor would I. It's a funny old world, isn't it? Not one time in 100 do things turn out how you think they will. We push on through the trials and tribulations of each and every day. We suffer through hardships and failure. We lose the ones we love. And then we die.
Do you think we were born into this world to suffer?
What I do know is that if success was guaranteed, we'd never get anything done. Uncertainty is what spurs us onward. Forward we move, if only by one step at a time, towards somewhere different than here. Through sadness and anger and joy alike. Life is all about that journey.
Are you feeling okay, Magulu? You're actually giving me sound advice for once.
Life's not all horribleness. We shouldn't be so quick to lay down and die.
Oh, she's great. I don't know if this is one of those games where I could pick a favorite character, because that's so hard for me to do in, well, really any JRPG. And like I was talking about back when we were doing the character studies for Tales of Berseria, I feel like this game does an amazing job of telling a unique and compelling story for each character, which makes it all the harder for me to play favorites, but there is something kind of special to me about the role that Magilou plays in the world and the emotions and history that she brings to it that enables her to have kind of an alarmingly sage perspective for everything that she projects.
Isn't it?
If you keep being so nervous, you'll make mistakes at the worst possible time.
You can't just tell me not to be nervous before our biggest battle. How else am I supposed to feel?
You're always so serious.
I can't help it. That's just how I am.
Yeah, you never change.
I have so changed. I was once the Abbey's loyal exorcist. And now I'm about to take on the Shepherd himself. And an Empyrean.
That isn't what I meant.
I know. I just needed to say my piece. After all, I'm an awfully serious woman.
We're lucky to have you, Eleanor.
I'm not sure it's right for the Lord of Calamity to be showing gratitude to an exorcist.
Hey, what good is being the Lord of Calamity if I can't speak my mind?
Hey, there you go, Pottery. What's the opposite of the Reaper's Curse? Good for you. Is it supposed to be a good game? I suppose any free hockey game is going to be a good game in one way or another, though. Oh, that's awesome. First game of the season. That's huge. Congratulations. I hope it's one for the books. Nice to be able to be there for that kind of energy.
At long last, we're ready to take on the Shepherd's Armadas. I can't wait.
Are you ever afraid of anything?
Of course. I used to be scared of losing a fight. I think that's why I could never win against Shigure.
Does anything scare you now?
Now all I fear is running away from a fight I might not win. And I was able to make that change traveling with you.
Really? I don't remember doing anything special.
It's something I came to realize over time. But still, thanks, Velvet.
I don't really know what you're talking about. And I don't need your thanks. If anything, you should be cursing me. If we lose this final battle and we all die, you'll get no apology from me.
I need an apology as much as you need my thanks. Time comes for everyone. What's important is that I choose how I live in the meantime. That's how I am.
Yeah, that's how you've always been.
Damn right. And that's how I'll always be.
I love this because, of course, with the Tales games, you always get the resolution scenes the night before, whether you're in Miercio or Flanor or any other of the wonderful places, Orneon. And that's a great way of, allowing the characters to reflect on their journey and what they've learned along the way and steel themselves for the final confrontation. But this feels like an innovation to me and something that's slightly different. This opportunity before the final confrontation itself for the protagonist to have these optional opportunities to just very directly thank each of the other members of the party. It feels like a special kind of just honor and recognition that is probably latent and implied in basically every Tales game, but to have it as this kind of optional dialogue that you can make the effort to effect as a player. And again, dialogue which, as best I can tell, is gated by actually completing the side quests of each particular character so that you really get to know them better and have all the context that you need to be able to see them and thank them in that way. That's really special.
Hey, Fee. There's something I need to talk to you about.
Yes? You can tell me anything.
It's about your... Why does your hair always stick up like that?
What?
Are you properly drying your hair after you take a bath? You'll catch a cold if you don't.
He's channeling Emil, I'm telling you.
I swear. It just always...
I thought a little bit more about that idea. I do think there's something to it.
I mean, it's kind of cute. So I guess...
Nautilus and Ratatosk.
I don't really want to be called cute.
Then you look handsome with it. I think it suits you.
That's a little better, I think.
Don't call me cute, I'm a dragon.
I never know what to say around Velvet.
Alright, well, lost cats or no lost cats, that was definitely worth the trip. Before Killer House, I'm just going to try tagging up at Miercio one more time. Because I know that conversation with that last Turtles seemed to be part of the Dark Turtles side quest. I wanted to make sure there wasn't more there that we just missed. I'm not seeing any exclamation points. I didn't double check this, but I do think we have 35 cat's chests, and I think we just need literally one more. And I think that's the condition for getting to Cat's Corner. But while we're here, we can pick off another Code Red Demon, looks like. Although I don't see it. Oh, it is perhaps on the other side of town. Over here? No. I'm gonna see if I can grab that while we're this close, because otherwise it's probably just not gonna happen at this point. There's still a special to get here.
Scout ship setting sail.
Well, I feel blessed that we got all of the treasures from the different expedition islands in such short order, because some of these other things one can discover there are proven pretty hard to actually excavate. This is the fucker who's resistant to everything, if I remember correctly. Well, might as well try again. We've gotten a little beefier since the last run at him.
I don't think we have a chance. No escape.
Yeah, so he's only level 52, but he's resistant to everything. And he only has 765 HP. So he's just one of those. That's an enemy type that we see in other games too. It's just always nonsense for obvious reasons to deal with. I'm just hoping that if we can get something going with like ranged spells, maybe that'll do something. We're literally not damaging him though. It's not just like reduced damage, it's no damage. So then I just don't know what the strategy is then. Alright, well... Oh, you think it's about hitting it with certain attack types? Alright, well let's see. What do we have? This is Fiend, okay. This is Amorphous. Well, it's worth a shot, and if that doesn't do it, we can let it lie for the moment, and then I can look it up if we have to, or if we want to after this. Or was that Mega Sonic Thrust? There we go. Let's see if that does anything. That's doing fuck all. Okay. Well, we tried. I feel like usually at least a strategy is evident, even if it's hard to execute. Having it just be a big fat question mark feels a little frustrating. Fix this. All right, well then. Just curious to see if doing that quest opened anything up at Norman Island. Doesn't look like it. There's one more cat's chest here, but that one I think requires 500 some cat souls, which we don't have right now. But if we get there, that might solve our problem of access to Cat's Island. Alright, back to Miercio, and that will get us to Kilros. So you have to play the reflect game with it, or just go to easy, which honestly, I played the reduce the mode game with the Spiral Draco and had no regrets or mixed emotions about it, so might end up doing that before our adventure in Berseria is done. And I would similarly feel no remorse about it. But let's see about the EX dungeon for now, because that ought to help us with Milla and Jude at least. So funny that you have to go past a town with a literal hot springs and do an EX dungeon in order to get the hot springs scenes in this game, as best I could tell from my research. Ah, there it is, up there. Oh, and there's another cat's chest. Okay, well, maybe we'll have enough to open that one. That's something. Alright, we're off. A plan takes shape. You truly never know with EX dungeons, because I was reading, as I said, and I think it said there are only 6 floors. And I say only, mostly by virtue of still coming off of my shell shock from the Necropolis of Nostalgia, so I find myself saying, man, not even double digits? Oh, that sounds like a cakewalk, but God knows, speaking of multivariate Tales formulae, there are plenty of ways in which they could make 6 floors a living hell and impossible to navigate, so cross your fingers and toes, it's a tractable problem. I will say, in terms of little touches for world navigation, one thing that will remain much more ingrained in my head than I expected, because I remembered it even from my first playthroughs of Zestiria and Berseria, just some of the noises that enemy sprites will make, like the one we just heard when they clock you on the map. A pretty rich ecological diversity of responses, and many of them are pretty memorable. Especially the ghost one for me, the one that's like, I don't know if I can emulate it without just doing my shadow impression, but the one that's kind of like, yeah, it gives me the chills when I hear it. I don't think this is the way forward, but it does have a lot of cat souls. And since we're half-heartedly trying to open at least one more cat's chest, might as well fetch some of these. It occurred to me for half a moment that maybe the game remembered our loss against Milla and Jude and did not restock our items. I was afraid we were walking around with no life bottles before running into an EX dungeon, but seems as if it was gracious and kicked us back to the previous save, rather than leaving us bereft of any supplies. Very satisfying to be able to unceremoniously plow through such large demons. I've been playing for less than an hour and a half and this controller battery is already low. I'm telling you, Sony can't keep getting away with it. That is rather fun to me. I hadn't made this connection, but the idea that the cauldron here in Mount Kilrouse is evidently the portal to the EX dungeon in Tales of Berseria, and also in the dimensional aspect of Tales of Berseria that finds its way to the interdimensional EX dungeon of Tales of Arise. The area you encounter is also the cauldron of Mount Kilrouse. So it's like the interdimensional nexus for multiple EX dungeons.
If you want to live, get out of my way.
It would have been a cool and thoughtful touch if, after killing Zavid's beloved, the dragon, when Aizen absorbed all that malevolence and kind of resolved and shared with the party that he intended to eventually become a dragon, if Aizen's his like draconic drive and his other burst art or whatever it's called, if they got strengthened following that. That'd be a nice moment of gameplay continuity with the story event.
I'll finish this now. We're finished here. Let's go.
Finger of God. It's a very cool name. Interesting to contemplate, too, in a world that's grounded by the Empyreans. Like, is God meant to be a reference to Nominat, or the other four elemental Empyreans, or are we meant to understand that there's some concept of God over and above the Empyreans? I don't know that we've really gotten any allusion to a god per se elsewhere in the story, unless I'm forgetting something. Okay, so I think I have to double check now. That's 35, I think. Cat's boxes, and yeah, 35. I think that's what it said online for the threshold to access in Cat's Corner, so hopefully we will also be able to do that now, but as we're here, let's crack this EX dungeon first and see how that is.
Is this an Earth Pulse?
I sense something strange up ahead.
I feel it too. It's something new.
Let's proceed with caution. I don't think this is any ordinary Earth Pulse.
That's EX dungeon music, alright. World's Enigma, the Heavenly Steppes. Alright. Man, Aaron was finding himself sufficiently confused just by regular Earth Pulses, let alone an EX dungeon Earth Pulse. Alright, let's see how it goes. What level are they? 70? Okay, that's not terrible.
No problems here.
Now we have to try to hit every fight they offer us if we want a shot at taking down Milla and Jude. There's some interesting chests.
I don't think we have a chance.
Her style is really unique.
It does feel a little off to me that they keep in rotation those post-battle conversations from the very beginning of the game this late, as if Velvet were observing Rokuro's style for the very first time after the full extent of their journey together.
Huh? Are we back at the volcano?
I don't think so.
Precisely correct. These are the Heavenly Steppes. Yeah.
The Heavenly Steppes?
It's a space where the world's secrets are tucked away.
Ooh!
An appalling power that draws in Malachine, you know. My cat's friends couldn't resist and got pulled deep inside. So then you are Malachine. No, we're cats. Cats are just cats. They came in because they were curious. You
The
know,
one
we're
constant
silly,
in the
but cats are
multiverse.
curiosity. This place was sealed away until you opened it up. I'd say you share a good portion of the blame. You know.
If it was sealed before, there's probably
Oh, is that right, Pottery?
it was for a very good reason.
That's a non-zero reason to recommend it.
It can attract Malachine. It's probably not something we should just ignore.
That post-battle dialogue for Alt's frequency colors a lot of the overall playthrough experience,
Please, my friends were
especially in a
reckless,
Tales
but
game.
there's no reason to abandon them. You know.
Turn back. I am one who understands the way the world works.
Tell us how, please.
Will to proceed, naught but despair awaits you within. Go back to your world and you may live a long life. Continue onward and your life will be very short.
Oh, come on! Now we have to continue onward. Doesn't she know anything about humans?
This is the
psychology?
perfect flavor of weird for a Tales
We're going
of
ahead,
Berseria
but not
EX
just for
dungeon.
cats. Being told it's futile makes me want to check it out more.
Right? That's what I'm saying.
We've got the themes of foolhardy human emotion. We have the esotericism that was picked up with Inominad and Magilu and Laphicet and everything. We have cats. All your bases are covered in one wild hodgepodge. I don't know that I want a dangerous battle. Can I get one of them? There we go. You never know how meta it's gonna get, Hugs. It's part of the terror and part of the fun, isn't it, just? Nier Automata wants to know your location.
There are none who can resist my spear.
It would be cool in a Tales game that's very self-consciously esoteric, like in Tales of Berseria, or I'm thinking of Tales of the Abyss also. I don't know if a Tales game has done this. I can't think of this kind of side quest off the top of my head, but a side quest of the kind that one sometimes gets in the Xenoblade games, where a character or an older society has left something like a series of riddles or paintings or little illusions that you have to decode in order to find certain locations where treasures or secrets exist across the world. That notion of the world having kind of a secret history that can only be revealed to those with the right kind of knowledge and experience feels like it would be really well suited to these sorts of games. Although it does seem like a bit of a higher sort of puzzle-solving difficulty side quest curve than one typically gets in modern Tales games. Oh, that's right. Yeah, the Wonder Bard. That's a good point, Pottery. That is a good example of that. I don't know how esoteric the Wonder Bard is in the in like the mystic sense of it, but in terms of side quest structure, that is the perfect example of what I'm talking about. Yes. Who knows, though? I wouldn't put it past them then to take that kind of side quest format and do something more spiritually contemplative with it in Beyond the Dawn. God knows they have the foundation for it in Tales of Arisa's world. Yeah, I remember that evaluation of it, Pottery, because I was selective on the side quests that I picked up in my replay of Tales of Arise because I simply had to be. I didn't have time before my lecture on it. And the Wonder Bard was one where I had the first interaction with him, and I kind of gave him a little side eye and muttered, "Oh, I remember you." And I let sleeping dogs lie, I am not ashamed to admit. Hugs, I'm totally with you. Yeah, I missed that last message of yours, but if you don't know, you probably know this about me already, but I am 1000% into all of the smart meta stuff that figures out new ways to involve as directly as possible player agency and engagement with the content of the story. If you haven't read much of my written publications, like, not so much nowadays, but back when I started, maybe like 75 to 80% of my work mostly lived in that domain because I found it really interesting and really fertile ground for thinking about the particular narrative ontology of video games versus other storytelling media like the novel or the film. I still think it's a key aspect of how the medium works, but I put it this way, I don't think one needs to get super overtly meta with it in order to take advantage of the cool elements of that language. Like you'll see, I mean, stay tuned in the next 48 hours or so, you'll see this Vesperia and Destiny piece, and I would say there are a lot of what you might consider interesting meta reflections in terms of like the involvement of the player's agency and the lessons you can take from the game, but it's not like I'm going to advance a claim that, oh, if you look at like the nature of the summon spirits and the way that mana works in Terca Lumere, you can actually draw the inference that the player is a god and a summon spirit herself. Because in other games and in other times, that is a form of argument that I would and have with reference to certain games made. But that's not the kind of thing that you'll see in this particular analysis. I don't think it's warranted.
Our scout ship has returned. I have mint and mushroom spore, tender parts of prickle boar.
Good luck out there. Don't come back empty-handed.
Oh, did we get the last thing? No, I thought we did. Man. A literal fishing expedition, folks. I keep saying to myself, Aaron, EX dungeon, don't get in too many encounters. And then I keep reminding myself, Aaron, my god, that fight with Jude and Milla. We have to make the party beefier. My man. Oh. The level 2 Mystic Arts are all so cool. I wish they procced more often with the AI. Oh, that's not what I meant.
Well, that about does it.
All right, halfway through the stream, my friends. I'm gonna advertise for a second time here. If you want to make your voice heard in contributing to the next leg of our real-life JRPG party's journey together through the Tales games, and see what there is to see in terms of their narrative content and the lessons we can take from them, doing a runoff vote. Either Tales of Graces or Tales of the Abyss. So make your voice heard. Would love to be able to pick one that we're all equally engaged with and interested in adventuring through. Not that either choice would be the wrong choice. Certainly not.
I don't think we have a chance.
Clusterfang, that's a cool name.
Aren't spears difficult weapons to master?
We will need to be extremely wary of
Oh, Jesus. Dodged into that swing.
Come on, put up some fight, okay?
You killed giants. You got really fucking big shoes.
We will need to be extremely wary. Hey, is everyone all right? We will need to be extremely wary.
Fly away, little birdie. Far away.
I don't think we have a chance.
This music makes me feel like we're gonna stay up all night and solve all the world's problems in one go, my friends. Nothing like good video game music to get you motivated. I didn't like that.
Just how does this sword work?
Don't touch it. You'll hurt yourself.
In other words, the rest of her is fair game.
Not unless you really want to get hurt.
Well, I don't want to jinx myself, but at least thus far, it's not seeming like the sort of EX dungeon in which one can get easily lost, which was one of my greatest anxieties about it. Especially after the embodiment of Innominat, the last story dungeon. I think I still haven't quite processed my PTSD from that. For all the jokes about a lot of this in Zestiria being relatively hallway-ish, like, they know how to get convoluted with their mapping when they want to. For me, at least, but then, of course, it's also a running gag that I still have trouble finding my way through literally the first dungeon in the game, even though you have to go back to it every 45 minutes or so. So, maybe I'm not the best one to judge those things.
I don't think we have a chance.
God damn it, Eleanor. We have no time! I'm worried about burning life bottles. God damn it. Let's switch to Magulu so at least we can have a spell absorber. It wasn't the best, but it was the worst. want to burn all of these, but these fairies are proving much more annoying than the last batch.
That was tougher than I would have liked.
From your lips to God's ears, Eisen. Alright, maybe we stay away from the fairies. I should check on our health, I guess. Oh, we're good now, actually. Well, we ended in a good place, at least. There's that. Weird. Maybe that's a way of getting out of the dungeon once we've cleared it or something? Or maybe it's just an exit on this map when the map is just an actual killer house as opposed to in the EX dungeon.
Not to misuse my power.
No, not the fairy. Anything but the fairy, please. That's the sound cue I was talking about earlier, the ghost one. They just hit it.
That was tougher than I would have liked.
How are we doing on levels? Not great. I was hoping we would have made more progress by now. We'll keep grinding. Not with those fairies, though. I don't trust those fairies.
I still need a lot of... I challenge
over, right?
Don't waste my time.
Be proud. You made me unleash my full power. Don't get over
Not bad.
Feed me that experience. Oh, whoa.
So what? It's a temple this time?
What the hell kind of place is this?
Look, there's a cat. Oh no, Meow. The cat's out of the box. By being observed, the question as to whether or not I'm lost has been resolved.
Oh no.
However,
Not Schrodinger's bewildered cats.
I give you this gift. It's another cat's towel. Thank you, Miss Cats.
Are there any other lost cats around here?
Yeah, my careless friends continued further on.
How were they able to progress?
There's a trick to it, Meow. It seems that this temple is the true form of the Heavenly Steppes. But reality is distorted here. So Meow, it's connected to a bunch of other places. The source behind the distortion seems to be a particular demon. Or rather, the malevolence it's exuding.
If we get rid of the malevolence, will everything connect normally again?
These cats are full of lines of that kind.
Malevolence is gone, the reversion will happen immediately.
What a hassle.
Well, we got quite a decent chunk of the way into this place before getting navigation instructions. Oh no, maybe that means that was just the prelude to the true EX dungeon. Oh no! Flames of malevolence disrupt your passage through the Heavenly Steppes. By extinguishing the flames, you can temporarily open the way forward. So kind of like a reversal of Nibelheim in Tales of Symphonia. Touching flames of malevolence causes a large number of demons to appear. When you defeat the demons, black embers scatter, extinguish all the embers to open a path forward, but if left long enough... Okay. Act quickly, attack quickly. I can get on board with that. Boy, Evie's got a lot of feelings this evening. She doesn't like EX dungeons, I guess. Other obstacles besides the flames of malevolence can block your path forward. Red and blue candles can open and close doorways. Alright. That doesn't seem too Baroque as far as EX dungeon navigation systems go. Alright, let's give it the old college try.
Are we ready for this?
I don't know. 76. Alright, we're climbing a little bit, but nothing too crazy yet. It's interesting with the explanation of what seems to be going on within the EX dungeon, because it seems like we're getting dimensional distortions in a kind of similar way to what happens in Tales of Arise, except in this instance, it's just kind of pulling together and convoluting space within the context of a single world, rather than across worlds as we get in Arise. I suppose, though, that if one has space-time convolutions as a concept in multiple worlds, that helps provide a continuity of explanation as to why, in a game like Tales of Arise, you would have access to these other dimensions, these other worlds. If the same phenomenon, even if explained differently, is going on in the different child worlds that are being pulled into the parent world, if you want to think of it that way. Shut the fuck up with that spell. Okay, so now we have to take these down. Alright. So it's one big fight, followed by other fights. Oh, and now we're on a clock until the first flame reconstitutes itself. Alright. I don't love that. Sure. That's right. Oh no. Speaking of the timelines merging. Oh god. Ashen One, why? Ashen One, no. Give it to me. Your dark malevolence. I could see Slave Knight Gale hanging out in the desolation. This seems like the kind of world with which he would jive well. Man, these stupid wolf-type enemies, speaking of Tales of Arise, they have me wishing for Dohalim's special battle skill to be able to just nail them to the ground with vines. Keep jumping away from me. I wonder if that's part of what gave them the idea for that skill, because Arise did come out right after Berseria. That's the question, Pink Moon Neko. That's what we've gotten it down to. Yeah, I talked a little bit about the different potential experiences at the top of the stream, which will be in the VOD, but I figured it will, it'll hopefully make it a little easier for a consensus to coalesce. They'd both be really fun. I think it would be nice because, at least in terms of the, the histories and specific worlds with which they deal, they're self-contained as opposed to the worlds we've been looking at in Tales of Symphonia and Tales of Vesperia and their companion games. But it would be different vibes in the sense that, as you know, Tales of the Abyss was one that I already worked through on my own and published on for Tales of Praxis a couple months ago. So that could be not more of a scripted or planned playthrough, but one where I would have points on hand to kind of talk to and guide people through as we were working through it. Whereas Tales of Graces was one that I probably played back in 2015, 2016, so not in quite a while, and which meant a lot to me at the time, but which I haven't played since then, so it'd be much more of a revisit after a good deal of time away, in a similar spirit to the ones we've been streaming so far. But no wrong choices, no bad options. It's the beauty of working within the Tales series. Well, we're gonna run out of time, which I don't love. I guess that means we'll get to find out what happens when that occurs, at least. Alright, so we're out of time.
I thought we were done for.
So I think that means the main flame comes back together. So now my question is, obviously we have to do the main flame again, but then will we have to go back to all of the embers, or will it just be the ones that we missed the first time? Because if the former, I feel like I might be fucked, but if the latter, it'll be a slog, but at least doable.
It worked! Huge success!
Mini Lloyd! Alright, there we go. That's what I was looking
Don't come
for.
back empty-handed.
Hugs, I don't know what it says about me that I'm excited about the prospect of something like that. Probably that I've played too many of these games. There it is. That's the answer. We solved it. That's the crossover that we need. Forget about Elden Ring DLC. Forget about Tales of Arise DLC. Just give us this. Thank you. I like to think it does. At least we're consistent with what we like and why we like it here on Tales of Praxis.
Ready for this?
Just Rokuro screaming Form 7 again and again in the background. I love it. Pottery, I would just echo hugs in the sentiment that I think whatever that says, it says good things. I think they are, in all seriousness though, like I think Alphen and Dohalim strike me as kind of an odd couple, like mixed doubles partners, which is kind of the same vibe that I get from Gauch and Droid, especially just through their bond with Jaeger, which has that entire vibe to me.
That was tougher than I would have liked.
I know vanishingly little about Tales of Fate, Spink Moon Neko. Why do you ask? Okay, so let's see. How many embers do we actually have to deal with now? 1, 2, 3. Oh, it looks like they all respawn, which makes me feel like maybe I won't be able to get through this just because I'm terrible with time trials. At least in the amount of time they're asking for. But we'll give it another try and then we can reevaluate. Yeah, no, I haven't. Yeah, I've mostly just stuck in my past so far to the mainline mothership titles and then their follow-ups and spin-offs and such. I do have Radiant Mythology for the PSP though, hanging out on my shelf, waiting for me as part of Tales of Praxis, definitely, so I'll hit that at some point. No, I don't even know if I've heard of Project X Zone, actually, Pottery. What is that? There's the explanation. Some Vesperia characters, you say.
That was tougher than I would have liked.
Yeah, they find their way into some things, don't they, with crossover projects? Like, half the time when I was looking stuff up for research, it would take me to, like, crossover wikis as opposed to anything to do with Vesperia per se.
Are we ready for this?
Which is interesting. Very cool. Nice to have that kind of commingling of DNA, I guess, maybe is the right way to say it. But not something I would have expected. That is a tragedy, but you know, who knows? Because my gut was going to tell me right away, just, oh, you know, that seems unlikely that something like that would ever happen. But especially with all the Xenoblade DNA in there now, kind of feel like they've opened the door to that. So who knows what the future holds? I would definitely jam with manning my boy Lloyd And some Final Destination antics. Yeah, probably. I'm sure one of the big things that'll launch whatever their next system is, right? Haven't there begun to be some stirrings about that at this point? Whether that's a Switch Pro or something else? I don't really keep up with that, but I hear murmurs about it. Yeah, I could see Asbel killing it. That could be a lot of fun. He has that energy about him, I agree. Sophie, also. I feel like a Asbel-Sophie combo would be cool for it. I feel like Sophie would naturally lend herself to a lot of the aerial antics that is so central to Smash. Okay, so I think this time, unless I miscounted, this at least is the last of the 3 embers. So I wonder whether, even though we ran out of time, if we finish this, we'll be able to proceed. If we're not, we may have to call it, honestly, and maybe hunt some Code Red demons or something, because I don't know that at our current level I can get through these enemies in the time that they're asking us to. Yeah, for sure, I hear you. That'd be very satisfying. I could see him almost working like the way they handle Fire Emblem characters like Marth and Roy, but being more awesome for obvious reasons.
It was a close one, but I am the victor.
Okay, so what the fuck happens now? Is it gonna reconstitute itself? Yeah. Yeah. I don't feel like running into the Thornburst or not is costing us that much time. Going to let us go through, or do we have to? No, we have to deal with this first. Well, okay. Since it seems to be telling us to do this, I'll just run into these first. And we'll try it one more time and see if that makes a difference. The experience will be helpful for the other fights anyways. And then if it doesn't work this time, we're going to have to come up with a different plan, I think. I don't like time trials. I never have. It's so funny the things you remember about like how you grew up as a gamer, because literally I remember one of my very first games, period, was Taken the Power of Juju on the GameCube, which I stand by as a great way into gaming. I had a hell of a lot of fun as a little 8-year-old kid breaking in my GameCube with that game. But even back then, one of the few things I still vividly remember about that game was the few dungeons that had time trials in them. It's like I had to put down and give up on the game more than once during those sequences because just... As I'm sure will not surprise any of you at this point, Aaron likes to be patient and take his time, which is just so antithetical to the ethos of a time trial. The status effects aren't making life any easier either. All right, thank you for voicing your opinion, Pink Moon Neko. I was saying, I think before you came in, I'm going to see where things stand on Friday and whether there's an obvious winner or if there's still time for more votes to come in. And you know, if it seems like we're already coalescing around a choice, I might announce it then. Otherwise, you know, we can mull it over the weekend and then make a plan on Monday. Also depends on how much longer we spend on Berseria here. I feel it in my bones that at this point we are kind of rapidly running out of side content, especially if Aaron can't make it through this EX dungeon, but I think we still got a bit of juice left in the gourd here. Oh, we still haven't done the Category 4 islands either. That might be a good way to beef ourselves up and not have to deal with the time trial. I knew there was more content that I was forgetting. Maybe that's what we try after this. We're getting the levels though, that's nice. We could also, I suppose, try further enhancing our equipment at some point. I'm sure that wouldn't hurt. I feel like even just maining Aizen might help a little bit, since his dive lets him warp to enemies, and we seem to be losing a lot of time to enemies running around in annoying circles.
It was a close one.
Are we ready for this?
Don't think so, Velvet. I think that's the lesson of this little stint. Good experience, though. I won't bemoan the opportunity to crank up the levels a little bit. Thanks for dropping in, Pink Moon Echo. Appreciate your voting, too. Always a pleasure to see you and work through these wonderful games with you, my friend. Hope to see you again on Friday. We'll be on same time.
That was tougher than I would.
Alright, one more. And we have 1 minute, which just doesn't feel like enough time. Yeah, we're out of time. Alright, well. I'm not even really willing to say that was a good try, but it was a try. It was a few tries. Pleasure to see and chat with you, Pottery, my friend. You be good. Enjoy that hockey game, alright? Stay safe. Don't get into too many fights. Looking forward to seeing you Friday. Keep enjoying that Arise playthrough, too. I'm enjoying your play-by-play of your thoughts, so let's talk about that more on Friday.
Our scout ship has returned.
Alright, well,
I'd expect no less.
we got some luck somewhere at least. Not where it counts, but... Oh, and a new attachment. That's something. Alright.
Scout ship setting sail.
Okay, I am going to lick my wounds and withdraw, I guess. Hey. Not my favorite kind of EX dungeon. If any doubt remained. But that's alright. Also a nice kind to revisit once we get a little beefier. So let's go to port and see if we can effect some more beefiness with some of these Category 4 islands. Exploring them after an entire game's worth of conversation about them, yet never setting foot on one. Is there any kit we can improve some more? No. No, that's okay. All right. To the dock? Yeah, to the dock. This is kind of cute. I feel like we haven't seen Benwick talking much about the Sylph J who hangs out on his hat. Oh, and we have so many. Well, might as well start at the very beginning. A dangerous place to start. The Aberrant Quarter. All right. I don't know that I went to one of these a single time in my first playthrough, so I don't even really know what to expect. It sounded from the way they were described during the main game as though they were gauntlets of a specific enemy type. And it almost sounded like some of them, if not all of them, were character specific. They made me almost think about the... oh, I forget what they were called, but the character-specific gauntlet challenges in Tales of Vesperia. One way to find out. Oh, not another malevolent flame. Right after you beat me over the head with it in the Heavenly Steppe.
Is that a fighting arena of some sort? I don't see any demons around.
Look! There's something spewing out of the middle!
I sense a really malicious force emanating from it.
That's probably the vengeful spirits of those who fought and died here looking for glory. Thanks for that. Now I've got goosebumps.
Let's try not to wind up as more vengeful spirits.
Always a good goal. All right. Take a deep breath. Let's fight some ooze? I want to say ooze. Oh, it's going to explain it to us. All right. Seems clear enough. Let's do it.
We can do this!
Oh, level 15. Okay. I'm okay with that. I feel like we deserve a little break in difficulty after what we just went through in the EX dungeon. I wonder how high the level goes. If there are different level bands at different islands, or if they all start that low and go to a certain fixed maximum difficulty. Another great battle track also. I love this. So we must get different difficulty levels at different locations because those stayed at level 15 the whole time.
It's disturbingly happy.
Which, I'll admit it, that makes me feel a little bit like we should have been doing them the whole game, but again, nice to have the difficulty break now. I won't look a gift horse in the mouth. Virtuoso's Ventite. Oh, an extra art set. That's nice.
Looks like we won't be joining the party.
I can see why this place is the stuff of cautionary bedtime stories.
Not to mention why the Abbey's keeping way the hell away.
We shouldn't let our guard down. But this place could still be a good chance to hone our combat skills.
Indeed. Most everything we fought here seems to follow a pattern. This is a good place for tactical training.
If we ever end up on another island like this one, we should probably come prepared for the kinds of enemies we'll face.
We must have hit a certain threshold for seeing many skits. It feels like about that time in a Tales adventure. I'll take it. And I'll be grateful for it. For all we've said about the skit-based storytelling, I always love some great skits in a Tales game, and I don't feel like I've been disappointed in Tales of Berseria. Alright, that's one. Let's keep on chugging through, so say I. Ugh, we don't have enough cat spirits for anything now. Alright, so it seems like really all there is to be found around the perimeter of the arena is a single cat's box. I imagine we'll get that at all of them, so... no special reason to hunt them down right now, and we don't have enough spirits. But that's good to know. Be a beautiful and relaxing little island, if not for the gross, malevolent ooze in the middle of it. Let's do it! Island of the Beasts! What level are we at now? 14. Okay. Oh, that's interesting. I wonder if they're going to be low level at all the islands because the ideas for tactical training against certain enemy types as opposed to a raw challenge of enemies that are strong level-wise. Probably won't be that good for fixing our level problem if so, but interesting all the same. And nice to see the content through. Yeah, they're up to 23 though, so level's climbing, but
I thought we were done for.
maybe they will get higher level by the time we get to the later isles. Alright, that's 2. Crustacean quarter. And we're off.
I'll show you the previous here one
Oh yeah, now we're already starting out at slightly higher levels. Allows the use of break soul and counterattacks on normal difficulty or higher. Excellent. All right, we rockin', we rollin'. How many of these do we have to look forward to? So that was 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 more. 10 total. Perfect. The winged quarter. Aerials in the sky. Velvet eats them and they're gonna die. Not today, Swordbeak. Not today. Whoa! I think that's the first time Laphicet triggered that the whole playthrough. Amazing. Indignation is one of those arts I love for all the myriad ways in which it's been represented across the series. Sometimes it's just a regular old high-powered spell like in Tales of Symphonia. Sometimes it's a proper upper-level mystic art like we just saw with Laphicet. Sometimes it's somewhere in between on the power scale, like a special upper-tier key, like plot battle ability with Ganabelt and Tales of Arise. Big Bang is another spell like that. Found myself looking into it because it figures actually in a more central way than I expected in my reading of Tales of Vesperia, which you'll see in a couple days.
That was tougher than I would have liked.
Secret Histories. That's a great name for a weapon. Some knowledge is best kept secret. These papers mustn't be shown to anyone. Wow. Speaking of esotericism. The Apodus Quarter. Snicks. Looks like we got some snacks.
I'll show you the beauty of my spear work.
Oh, plant life. What does Apodus mean? I ought to know that. Gotta look it up. Ah, without feet! Or having only rudimentary feet. Whence plants and also snakes. Leave it to a JRPG to teach you some basic zoology. Learned more from Tales games than I did my, my biology courses.
for losing your temper.
Oh, sorry.
Let the boy try to act tough.
Alright, we're going to try to make it through the rest of these Class 4 islands, which I think is reasonable. But since we're wrapping up on the end of the stream, I will share the call to contribute to the runoff vote for which live book club JRPG Tales Adventure we will next see ourselves off on. Tales of Graces or Tales of the Abyss. The choice is ours to make, my dear friends. All right, we're halfway through. Let's do it. March on. Give me some demi-humans.
I'll finish this now. No mercy! Won't that only
No, my autocorrect, I'm just noticing, hit Tales of Graces as Tales of Grace. Well, if you know, you know. It's Tales of Graces. I think the poll has it right. I'll have to triple check that after the stream. We've definitely climbed the levels. Fighting 50s now. So maybe we'll get a couple levels for the party out of this leg of the adventure after all. That'd be nice. Bloodblade, weapon for Velvet.
Take a look at this.
Good luck out there.
Alright, well, I don't know whether we'll get all the way through them, looking at the time, but I think we can make our way through one more at least. The Undead Quarter. Now we did that whole riff on Dark Souls crossovers, and now I just have Undeadburg in my head.
We can do this.
That's cool too, in thinking of Mautalis as the new, like, mystic primordial basis for the world, because if you look at the way Laphicet invokes indignation, it's not just the kind of heavenly wrath that indignation typically represents. It creates this kind of liminal space between heaven and hell and binds the enemy in that gap. So it's like even before he's becoming Mautalis, he's expressing this kind of agency over the two poles of nature. Light and darkness, malevolence and purification, however one wants to break it down. Awesome. I think that's the first time that procced. Alright, friends, thinkers, gamers. We got 2 minutes to the hour. It did start a couple minutes late. How many do we have left? 3? I'm going to say let's knock off one more, and then we can kick off the Friday stream by rounding it out with the last 2. That sounds like a plan to me. And what better note on which to end than fiends? Ooh. Oh, this island is so lopsided. We simply have to check out what's over here. Is it just the cat's chest, or is there something else? No, just the cat's chest. Can we open the cat's chest? No, of course not. Not even close. Oh, have we not... Do you not get experience for these class 4 islands? Because I don't... It actually doesn't look like we've moved any closer to the next level for any of the characters. Looks like we're stuck at 68. That's rather frustrating. Well, nice to knock them off anyways. Just not helping our ability to deal with the EX dungeon. I imagine it would also be easier to deal with, either in terms of being able to kill the enemies more quickly or just being allotted more time if we crank the difficulty setting down to easy. So I don't love doing that, but if push comes to shove and we want to see the EX dungeon through, that might be a way to at least make it a tractable problem.
I'll finish this now.
Not fairies! All right.
Okay?
Oh, yeah, I should have clocked that earlier. 0 experience. Oy. Oh, I stand by the decision to clear them out. But man, you'd think they could give you experience. Not sure what would be lost if they had set it up that way. But ours is not to question the reason why. To ponder the mystery is itself a gift, as our old friend Genesis would say from other video game series. All right, dear friends. Well, there you go. Started 5 minutes late, went 5 minutes late. 3 hours. Not bad for timing on a fine Wednesday evening. Really fun to be working through the post-game of this wonderful Tales entry with you all. And fair to say we covered off pretty much the full range of the offering on a night such as this. Started with some really touching and poignant and fully cutscened background content on Artorias and Claudin and the Norman, of all things. Attempted the EX dungeon and at least got some context as to what it'll take to get through that and see what awaits us on the other side. So we'll definitely give that another run in one form or another. And paid the Class 4 Islands a long overdue set of visits, which is where we will pick things up on Friday. We'll be back at the same time, 7 p.m. Eastern. Go vote if you haven't already in the runoff poll, trying to decide now between Tales of the Abyss or Tales of Graces for what we'll be playing next. If you're watching the VOD, I'll make sure it's in the video description as well. So make your voice heard, especially if you want to be part of the real life JRPG party and come on the adventure with us live. It would be a pleasure to have your interest heard and be a part of how we make the decision. So look forward to that. Look forward to this Tales of Vesperia Destiny article. I'm so excited to share it out into the world and talk about it with all of you afterwards. That's really the most rewarding part of Tales of Praxis, is actually working through and thinking about the praxis of these games and the messages that they're trying to convey to their players in them and outside of them. And I think this will be a really fun article for that. So I think that says everything and then some. Be back at the same time in a couple days, my friends. Until then, be good, play well, think well. I'll see you again real soon. I'm your host, Aaron Suduko, the founder of With the Terrible Fate. See you in not too long. Cheers.